It started with a side eye, then a muttered word, then the explosion. In a moment that has hip-hop fans across the globe gasping. Jadakiss, the Yonkers legend known for his composed demeanor, reportedly snapped on Jim Jones during a backstage interaction that no one saw coming. Eyewitnesses claim the two exchanged icy glares at a recent industry event, but it was Jadakiss's voice that finally shattered the room. And what he said, it's echoing through every corner of the culture. "You're embarrassing the game, bro. This ain't it." Not anymore. That sentence, delivered with raw frustration, has ignited a firestorm. Social media is in chaos. Artists are picking sides, and even veteran producers are weighing in. But what pushed Jadakiss to the edge? Was it something Jim said behind the scenes? Was it the simmering tension since their versus moment? Or did years of unspoken disrespect finally erupt into public view? One thing's clear. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was a full-on cultural clash. And the fallout might shake hip-hop's foundation. Stay with us, because what unfolded next will make you question everything you thought you knew about these two giants. The lounge was buzzing, low-lit and thick with the scent of expensive cologne and industry tension. The kind of tension that's not loud but loaded. This wasn't a club or a backstage after-party. It was the type of exclusive gathering where contracts are whispered over champagne and grudges are silently measured across the room. Jadakiss stood near the edge, calm but watchful, nodding politely. As someone from a record label recited the same industry praises he'd heard 100 times before. He wasn't really listening. His eyes kept drifting across the room to where Jim Jones was laughing, arms draped over two younger rappers like a proud uncle showing off his legacy. Except it didn't feel genuine. Not tonight. It wasn't that they had beef, at least not officially, but there had been small moments, too many of them lately. Interviews where Jim would casually downplay the locks, moments in club appearances where he'd refer to his era as the one that really taught New York how to move. Jadakiss never responded, not publicly, not until now. A mutual friend approached and tried to pull them into a conversation. Something casual, neutral. It started light, polite nods, short laughs, that fake warmth celebrities wear like tailored suits. But when Jim leaned in and joked, "Yo, Kiss, tell your boy Styles to finally admit we had the better verses," the temperature in the room dropped. Jadakiss didn't smile. He didn't even blink for a moment. Then, in a voice so low it felt like it was meant for only Jim, he said, "That's your legacy now? Talking about verses like it's your Grammy?" Jim straightened up, his smile faltering just enough to notice. "Nah. Come on, man," he said. "I'm just saying we brought a different energy." Kiss didn't back down. "You brought noise. We brought bars." The room went quiet. The laughter stopped. Someone turned down the music like they could feel something brewing. Jim shrugged, trying to play it off. People rock with energy. Not everybody trying to be lyrical professors all the time. "Right," Jadakiss replied. "Because reading's hard. It wasn't the words, it was the weight behind them. The decades of work, of respect, of lyricism being chipped away in the name of clout, flash, and algorithm trends." Jadakiss wasn't angry just for himself. He was angry for the culture, for the writers, for the spitters who lived in studios crafting lines that meant something. And he felt like Jim, once a soldier of that same craft, had sold it out for likes. A silence wrapped around them. Eyes turned. Even those trying to act casual couldn't pretend nothing was happening anymore. "Look, bro," Jim said, "hands up. I respect you. Always have. But don't act like I haven't put in my work. Don't come at me like I'm some clown off TikTok. You act like one." Jadakiss shot back. "Look at how you move. Look at how you talk. You used to be about this. Now you're just performing." Jim stepped forward, too close now. "Performing? So you think you're the only one real out here?" "No," Jadakiss said calmly. "I just know who's pretending." At that point, security subtly shifted in, not in an aggressive way, but in that quiet, practiced way that says they've seen enough celebrity tension to know the signs. But no one intervened. Not yet. It wasn't a fight. Not in fists. But it was personal, deeper, the kind of confrontation that's been brewing silently for years and finally found air. Jim exhaled through his nose, looked around the room, then back at Kiss. "You've been holding that in a long time, huh?" "Too long," Kiss replied. Someone tried to break the ice with a joke from across the room. It didn't land. The vibe had shifted. Even the music in the background, something light and smooth moments ago, now felt awkward. That's when Jim raised his voice, not yelling, but louder than before. "So say it then. Stop playing chess with your words. You think I'm an embarrassment? Say it." Jadakiss stared at him. For a second, just silence. Then he said, "You're an embarrassment to the foundation we built, to the message we carried, to every youngin who thought hip-hop was about truth, not tricks." There it was. The moment everyone would replay for days. The line that would live on Twitter, in blogs, on podcasts dissecting every word. Cameras were discreetly rolling now. Some phones were already pointed their way. It was no longer just a conversation, it was content. Jim's jaw flexed, his tongue pressed against his cheek. "You think you're better than me? I think you forgot who you used to be," Jadakiss replied. Then he turned and walked away. Not storming off, not making a scene, just done. And that made it worse, because he didn't need a mic drop. His words already landed. Jim stood frozen for a beat, his crew unsure whether to follow or let him cool off. Around the room, whispers started. People texting others, sending clips. The moment was already leaving the room and flooding the internet. And, for the first time in a long time, Jim Jones didn't have a comeback. Not when that mattered. He just stood there, in the middle of it all, looking like he wasn't sure what part he was playing anymore. The days that followed moved fast, as they always do in the digital age. The clip of Jadakiss turning his back on Jim Jones spread across social media like fire through dry grass. Fans dissected every word, every look, every pause. The moment when Kiss said, "You're an embarrassment to the foundation we built," was reposted so many times it practically etched itself into the culture's memory overnight. Podcasts picked it up first. The morning shows followed. YouTube reactors filmed themselves watching the footage, gasping, rewinding, and commenting with expressions like "Kiss didn't hold back" and "that man meant every word." Hashtags like #Jadakiss call edit and #Jim versus the culture started trending. Jim Jones tried to play it off in a quick Instagram live. Sitting in his car, sunglasses on, hoodie pulled low, he smiled and said, "Y'all really think I'm worried about that? Come on, man. It's love. It's always been love." But his laugh didn't sound convincing. Not this time. And everyone could feel it. In the comments, fans weren't having it. They posted old clips of Jim dissing lyrical rappers, comparing those with substance to dinosaurs. Others dug up interviews where he shaded other legends, subtly or directly. It was as if the internet had become a jury, and the verdict was quickly closing in. Meanwhile, Jadakiss remained silent. Not a word, not a comment, not a follow-up. And that silence spoke louder than any post Jim could make. By the third day, a different clip surfaced, one that hadn't made the rounds initially. Someone had caught the moments after the confrontation, when Jadakiss walked through the hallway toward the exit, and Styles P had appeared out of a side door to meet him. "You finally said it," Styles said, clapping his boy on the shoulder. "Yeah," Kiss replied. He needed to hear it. "Been needing to," Styles agreed. The footage ended there, but the energy didn't. Fans called it a renaissance. Others said it was just the latest reality show. But the consensus was clear: something real had gone down. Something unfiltered. Something not curated for cameras. Jim Jones, feeling the pressure, decided to respond with a full interview. He sat down with a well-known host on a streaming platform. The setting dressed in mood lighting, walls lined with vintage vinyls, trying to give off a classic hip-hop feel. The host didn't waste time. "So let's talk about what everybody's talking about," he said. "That moment with Jadakiss. What happened?" Jim leaned back, nodded slowly, took a sip of water, then said, "Look, man, I respect Kiss. I always have. We come from the same cloth. But sometimes people be too sensitive. I cracked a joke. That's it." He didn't take it like a joke, the host said. Jim's tone sharpened slightly. "That's on him. You can't be calling someone an embarrassment in front of everybody and think that's okay. So you felt disrespected?" "Of course. Who wouldn't? But it ain't just about me. He made it sound like I don't love this culture. Like I don't bleed for this. The comments on the interview were split. Some sided with Jim. Others said he was deflecting, missing the point. One user wrote, "Loving the culture means preserving it, not selling it out." Another said, "He's not mad about the disrespect. He's mad because it was true." What no one expected was what came next. A young rapper, one who'd recently gone viral on TikTok for flashy but shallow bars, posted a now deleted tweet. "Damn. If Jim Jones an embarrassment, what'd that make me?" The tweet spiraled. Other new wave artists chimed in, some defending Jim, others mocking the situation altogether. Suddenly, it wasn't just about two legends. It became a cultural moment, an entire conversation about what hip-hop stands for, what the new generation inherited, and who's really pushing the art forward. And in the midst of all that noise, an unexpected voice entered the chat. Nas. In a rare Instagram story, Nas posted a screenshot of the incident with a single caption, "Bars matter." The internet exploded. Blogs called it the quiet cosin heard around the world. Fans immediately connected it to Kiss. Threads speculated whether this was the start of a bigger movement, a kind of lyrical reawakening. Jim tried to shake it off. He posted clips of his past performances, interviews of him talking about his upbringing in Harlem, moments meant to show his authenticity, but people weren't buying it the same way anymore. The narrative had shifted. He had become a symbol, fairly or not, of what happens when the foundation gets blurred by fame. What made it harder was that within his own camp, cracks were forming. Cameron, always one to keep things interesting, posted a meme of someone handing out lyrical integrity awards. No caption, just the image. But the timing was surgical. Rumors began swirling that Dipset wasn't as united as they seemed. One insider claimed there had been arguments behind the scenes, especially after the Versus battle, where the Lock's performance had reignited respect for the old-school approach to rhyming. They tried to laugh it off back then, the source said. But deep down, they knew they got cooked, and it stuck with Jim more than he'd admit. Jadakiss, still silent, broke that silence in a way only he could. He posted a short video, just him in the studio. No caption, no tags. In the video, he was recording a track. The line that caught everyone's attention? "Legacy ain't fashion. It's not what you wear. It's what you leave behind when nobody's there." That bar alone sparked a fresh wave of commentary. Fans begged for a full song. GJS started teasing it without even having the file. Hip-hop heads quoted it like scripture. And for Jim, the walls felt like they were closing in. He tried one last move, a public appearance at a community event in Harlem. He gave a speech about staying true, about remembering your roots. It was heartfelt. It was well received. But even there, someone in the crowd yelled, "Bars matter." He paused, smiled faintly, but you could see it in his eyes. He wasn't sure who was on his side anymore. Back in the studio, Jadakiss kept writing, and the city kept watching. Jadakiss wasn't trying to go viral. He wasn't trying to trend. He was just doing what he'd always done, right from the gut, speak from the soul, and let the pen settle scores where voices failed. But what he didn't expect was how deep this one would cut. Not just into Jim Jones, but into the whole fabric of how the culture was being seen, marketed, and remembered. As he sat in the booth, headphones on, beat low in the background, he barely moved, just stared ahead, nodding slowly, mouthing words he hadn't even spoken yet. Outside the booth, engineers whispered to each other. They knew something was coming, something important. Meanwhile, Jim was on a completely different wavelength. Behind the scenes, his team was scrambling. Calls were being made to radio stations, podcasts, even influencers, all trying to shift the conversation. "We need to sit down," one of his handlers said. "You and Kiss, something public. Squash it face to face." Jim wasn't feeling it. "Nah, not like that. It'd look forced, like I'm chasing clout. I'm not apologizing for being who I am." But deep down, it wasn't about pride. It was about fear. Fear that everything Jadakiss had said, everything the fans were repeating, wasn't just noise. It was truth. And once that truth settles in, image can't save you. At the same time, Kiss dropped a snippet, just 23 seconds. No visuals, just an audio clip on a black background, posted to his story. You sold shoes and shows while the message was missing. I stayed low with the pen, but y'all forgot I was different. Those lines spread like wildfire. Fans dissected them, line by line, word by word. The consensus was clear. This wasn't just music. This was a mission statement. One fan tweeted, "Kiss didn't just come at Jim, he came at the industry." Soon after, the tension spilled offline. At a hip-hop event in Brooklyn, originally meant to be a panel on New York's legacy, and unscheduled guests showed up. Jadakiss. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Phones went up like lighters. He wasn't there to perform. He wasn't there to speak. He just stood in the back for a while, nodded to a few folks, and quietly left. But the message was loud. Word got back to Jim almost instantly. "He just pulled up?" Jim asked, looking at his phone screen. "To a legacy panel? That's cute." But even his closest friends knew he was rattled, especially when Styles P followed up with a post of his own. "Don't wait till legends die to call them real." The caption read, attached to a photo of Jadakiss and himself during their rough early days. Dipset's silence was growing louder too. Cameron, who had always been vocal, started avoiding questions about Jim altogether. Interviews felt colder. Chemistry on stage wasn't the same. Insiders said Cam was tired of constantly defending a narrative he didn't write. Fans started speculating that Jadakiss had become something more than an artist in this situation. To many, he was a symbol, a reminder that hip-hop isn't just about hits and headlines. It's about integrity. And then it happened. One morning, with no announcement, a full track dropped on streaming platforms. No features, no flashy production, just Kiss and a looped beat that sounded like it was recorded in a basement somewhere in Yonkers. The title, "Legacy Over Luxury." The first line, "I seen culture get auctioned by the ones who never wrote for it." Every line after that hit like a jab. No names mentioned, but everyone knew, especially Jim. The reaction was immediate. Twitter blew up. Spotify plays soared. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. One reviewer said, "This isn't a diss track. It's a wake-up call." Another called it a masterclass in restraint and precision. And somewhere in Harlem, Jim sat alone, listening to it with the volume low, face unreadable. No cameras, no team. Just him and the voice of a man who used to share the same stage with him, now calling him out in a language only real heads understood. But Jim wasn't ready to fold. 2 days later, he dropped his own response. "Still Here" was the title. The cover was a black and white photo of him as a kid, sitting on a stoop, eyes full of fire. The track was raw, defensive, proud, but there was an undercurrent of pain. You ever hustle just to feed your circle, while they clown you for not reading the manual? Some called it his most honest verse in years. Others said it was too little too late. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over. Because the fans weren't letting it go, they started comparing. Lyrics, tone, message. They posted side-by-side screenshots of bars from both tracks. Debates raged online. Clubhouse rooms stayed active until 3 a.m. Old heads clashed with new heads. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was hip-hop. And in the middle of it, the culture breathed deeper than it had in months. What no one saw coming, though, was who showed up next. A private studio session uptown. A grainy clip leaked showing Nas, Jadakiss, Black Thought, and Benny the Butcher sitting in a circle, headphones on, nodding in rhythm. No words, just nods. When the clip hit Twitter, people lost their minds. What are they cooking? This about to be the lyrical Avengers. Jim Jones about to deactivate his account. Jim didn't respond to the clip, not publicly, but he knew. They all knew. The lines had been drawn, not in blood, but in bars. And this time, it wasn't about who had the flashiest hook or the most Instagram followers. It was about weight, about voice, about history. But even through the noise, something unexpected began to form. Not just sides, not just camps, but a question. One that hovered over everything like smoke after a fire. What does it really mean to love this culture? The answers were coming, and they weren't going to be quiet. The room smelled of old wood, incense, and vinyl. Jadakiss sat at a round table in a dimly lit lounge in Manhattan, surrounded by a few faces who'd earned their stripes through silence, not spectacle. Across from him, Black Thought leaned forward, hands steepled under his chin, while Nas scrolled through messages on a cracked phone screen, pausing occasionally to shake his head. The energy's shifting, Nas muttered. Not just online, in the streets too. You stirred something, bro. Jadakiss nodded, but said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. Outside, cameras waited. Fans lingered. But inside, the conversation had moved past beats and rhymes. They were talking about legacy, what they'd fought for, what they'd lost, what still mattered. Meanwhile, Jim Jones was in Miami. Palm trees, yachts, bright lights. On the surface, everything looked like success. But inside the studio, his team was fractured. The energy was off. One of his longtime producers walked out mid-session after an argument over lyrics that felt too forced, too reactive. You trying too hard to respond, the producer said. This ain't you, Jim fired back. They makin' it seem like I never bled for this, like I never lived it. But the truth was creeping in, not from Kiss's lyrics, but from the fans' reaction. They weren't just praising the bars. They were questioning the foundation. Every chain, every flex, every viral clip that had once earned praise now faced scrutiny. When did we start rewarding who talks loudest instead of who speaks truth? One post read, racking up thousands of likes. Jim scrolled past it, jaw clenched, scrolling faster as if speed could drown the noise. But there it was again. And again. People weren't canceling him, they were challenging him. And that felt worse. Back in New York, a surprise freestyle event popped up in Harlem. Jadakiss didn't announce his appearance. He didn't post about it. He just walked onto the street, mic in hand, crowd parting like the Red Sea. No stage, no lights, just rhymes. He spit for 7 minutes straight. No beat, no hook, just words. I seen the crown tossed in dirt and picked up by actors. I came back to show rappers still matter. The clip hit the internet like a thunderclap. No effects, no filters, just truth. Jim's response was quieter this time. No diss track, no video, just a post, a black square, no caption. The comments were split. Some said it was maturity, others said it was surrender. Either way, the silence spoke. But then, something shifted. A young rapper, barely 21, with barely 2 songs to his name, dropped a track inspired by the entire saga. The hook? Kiss schooled the game now. We back in detention. It wasn't a diss. It wasn't even directed. It was a love letter. Raw, gritty, hopeful. The track blew up. It topped trending charts on TikTok. Even Jadakiss reposted it with 3 fire emojis. A new wave was brewing. Artists who grew up watching both camps were choosing sides not out of hate, but out of alignment. They were choosing bars over buzz, message over momentum. And in that shift, something rare happened. Unity. Cameron, who'd been silent through most of the conflict, dropped a surprise post, a photo of him, Jim, and Jadakiss from the early days. The caption read, before the noise, before the lines, just brothers. Fans didn't know what to make of it. Was it peace? Nostalgia? Shade? And then, a bombshell. An announcement hit social media from an anonymous account tied to a major label. Summer session. Live debate. Hosted by Sway. 2 chairs. 1 room. No beats. Just the truth. The names weren't mentioned, but everyone knew. The internet exploded. Memes flooded in. Debates reignited. But under the chaos, there was something real anticipation. Not for violence, not for diss tracks, for conversation. When the day came, the studio was locked tight. No press, no audience. Just 2 men at table and Sway in the middle. No cameras leaked. No audio dropped. But when the session ended, both Jadakiss and Jim Jones posted the same thing. A handshake emoji. No one spoke for days after. And then Jadakiss uploaded a single video to his channel. He sat alone in a chair, camera low. No music, no edits. He looked into the lens and spoke quietly. Sometimes the loudest moments come after the last word. Respect to those who listen. And that was it. The culture shifted again. No flashy collabs, No victory laps, just a quiet return to the heart of the art. In the weeks that followed, both Jim and Kiss appeared on separate interviews. No shade, no drama, just reflections. Jim admitted, "I lost myself in the noise, forgot who I was trying to be versus who I already was." Jadakiss said, "Wasn't about him. Was about reminding folks this thing we built, it's sacred. You disrespect that, we all lose." And the fans? They remembered. Not the drama, not the headlines, but the feeling. The way a lyric could shake a room. The way truth could stand taller than ego. Streams rose for both artists. Younger rappers started referencing them in their verses. Podcasts shifted from gossip to gratitude. Even long feuding blogs called it the most respectful beef that saved the game. And maybe that was the point. Not to win, not to destroy, but to reset. To remind everyone that hip-hop isn't just about who holds the mic. It's about what you say when you have it. And in this case, both men said enough. And just like that, the dust finally settled. No fists were thrown. No careers were ended, yet the impact rippled through the entire culture. What started as a fiery exchange became a masterclass in